Hello, this is Wolf here with another update on the model kit I wish I had time to work on, but I've been so sidetracked getting into this electronic stuff. Anyway, I have built another circuit board for my Leaf Erickson Chaser circuit, and I thought I'd show you guys how I did it. As you may recall from a previous video, I built another circuit board and it behaved slightly different than this one. This one is not a 4017 chip. It's what the hell is it? 74HC164, which is a serial in, parallel out, and it's being clocked by a 555. And I've still got its big brother right next to it, which was the 4017. Let me crank that thing on so you can compare the differences. That one's just latches one time and goes through the cycle and turns off, while its younger brother here latches and unlatches sequentially, which isn't the effect I wanted to begin with. But the more I played with it, I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. So that's what I ended up going with on this one. Now, I didn't do this all for fun, although it was kind of fun. But let me turn these guys off here. I had to get down smaller. I knew going into it by the time I built this thing here that it wasn't exactly what I wanted. It was big and it wants a 9-volt battery, and at that point in time I had already invested so much time fooling around with it and buying parts and breadboarding and all that. I decided to go ahead and solder it up and see how good my soldering technique was. But well, just to show you here, let me back this up a ways. Here's the actual hull that this thing has to go into, and I don't know if you can visualize that, but spinning that little card sideways, it's got to go right in here. That leaves you a little room. I can make it work. I already looked at it and I can chop the corners and the sides and squeeze it in there. But it also wants a 9-volt battery, which, here's your 9-volt battery. It's got to go in there, and getting it through this access hole is not happening without surgery. So I wanted something smaller, and this guy here, that'll comfortably fit in here. And I glued together two 30-32 watch batteries, and those will go right in there. I don't have to modify too much except the back access panel. I need to like build magnets or something to close it up. Anyway, for those of you who just want to know how to make that thing, I'll just go back through the process there real quick, because I don't want to repeat a whole bunch of stuff that I covered in a previous video. So the first thing I did, of course, was software it. So let me focus you here on a screen. This is the Proteus software again. And you build your circuit and you run the old simulation and test it out. And if you get to that, then you're good to go. Then you go and breadboard it. And those of you who don't want to see that right now, I'll just show you the schematic. You can do a screen capture on that. And after I breadboarded it, then I went to a layout. Again, I used a CAD program and try and make the footprint as small as possible. This thing's got, 8 LEDs instead of the other board had 10. So 8 current resisting or limiting resistors, and 4 more for the ICs. And like there's the 555 and there's the 74HC164. And it also has 1 transistor and a analytic capacitor and a ceramic disc capacitor right there. I actually made this thing work with a 3909 to clock this thing, but the gurus on the web forums, they told me I was crazy, even though I had it working on my breadboard. But I didn't have any 555s on hand at the time, so that's what I went with, and it worked. But then my 555 showed up right before I was ready to solder it together, so I switched to that. And so this schematic is of the 555. And then there's the actual board. And let's see. There's the top of it with all the components laid in. This was actually a bigger board. It was longer. And I chopped it off right there. And then to solder it all up, there's the back side of it. Your standard factory made mumbo jumbo. Anyway, that was a lot of fun again. I'm not the world's best solderer, but I'm learning. And anybody else that wants to know the in-between steps, I think the most important one is like when you're breadboarding. So, because you learn a lot of things you're doing wrong right there. So I've still got the breadboard here. Let me like hook this thing up and just give you a quick idea between, where's my positive right here. Let me get these guys out of the way. And there's the old negative. Because I went through a lot of trial and error with both breadboard projects so far. And if you can't get it to do that on your breadboard, you're probably not going to get it to do it on your circuit board. And it's kind of frustrating going from the schematic to the breadboard and then to the circuit board, because you're always completely changing the layout. And I'm not sure why the whole academia is set up like that, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe one day I'll have enough insight to explain it to somebody, but like, let's look back at the screen here and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Here's the schematic of that breadboard you just looked at. And let me zoom in just a little closer. In fact, I'll just zoom on the screen if I remember how. Here's the bottom half showing the 555 chip. Well, that's not a real 555 chip, because you have pins coming out of either side. They aren't on the ends, and they certainly aren't numbered 452 1673, okay? And I don't know why this system is in use. When I go from a schematic like this and try and translate that to the breadboard, you're always looking back and forth trying to figure out where what goes. And then, of course, going from the breadboard to an actual circuit board, you're doing it again, because you're trying to make a small footprint and you just don't have wires and jumpers and things like that to deal with. But anyway, I'm getting closer and closer to dropping this and actually going back to gluing plastic, which is what I really want to be doing. But I think this was a necessary evil for me. I'm actually going to do one more circuit board, kind of do the same thing, but with other components again. I've looked at it and I don't really think I can get the footprint much smaller, but I just want to do it for my own self-taught lesson here I'm on and see if it works. And I'm running out of green LEDs. Maybe I'll use red ones next time, or yellow or something. Anyway, that's my latest update. And if anybody has any questions, please post comment, or better yet, go to either allaboutscircuits.com or electrotechonline.com and get into these electronics forums, and these guys are sharp as tacks. They'll answer your questions about anything you want to build. Alright guys, happy modeling.